Hi everyone, my name is Christina and I'm an implementation consultant at Prosymmetry. In this video, we will talk about a common use case in which a Tempus user wants to plan for a new project, but only using generic resources or role-based resources first, and then move that demand onto named resources at a later time. The best way to accomplish this in Tempus will be to use the demand planning resource type to create your initial plan first, and then use the resource replace functionality within the single allocation grid or the bulk project allocation flat grid once you're ready to assign real people to that work. So let's take a look at how this works in Tempus. So I'm in Tempus now, and I'm going to click into my project management tile and find a newly created project that I have entered into my system. This is a new piece of work that has come in and needs to start in May of this year, running through the end of the year. So I can see the start and end date listed out here. We also see that I have loaded in here using demand planning resources, 3 generic or role-based resources that I know need to work on this project for the duration of the project. So I can see that these are resources that are demand planning resources notated by this little purple person icon. This one's called backend developer. I've got a front-end developer allocated to this project as well as a software engineer. I have allocations in FTE, but I can also, of course, toggle on to the different allocation units. But I have the original demand plan here for the types of roles that I know I need and the time I need them for on this new piece of work. So for example, I know I need a backend developer for their full capacity, so 1 FTE, May through, let's toggle this onto the month for a little bit of a cleaner view here. So I know I need 1 FTE May through July, and then half of their time August through December, so the remainder of the project. The front-end developer, I kind of need the opposite. I need half of their time devoted to this project, May through August, and then their full time September through December. And then I know I need a software engineer, at least one dedicating their full capacity to this project for the entire duration, May through December. You'll also notice that I have intentionally toggled off the heat map that you may be familiar with in Tempus for all of my demand planning resources. That's intentional just because, as you know, these resources don't have true capacity in the system. They truly just represent demand on a project that needs to be filled by a real person at a later point in time. So a heat map in that kind of a scenario would not really be relevant because there's no capacity to create that percentage threshold color. We can also see within this single project allocation grid, I have inserted a couple of columns with assignment attributes called location needed and skills needed to help me determine for this project, this demand, what location do I need these eventual people to be in, and what skills do they need to have to take on this work. So let's assume that I'm the person responsible at my organization for inputting the initial demand plan for new projects using generic resources, which I have done here. And then let's assume that this initial demand plan has gone through some kind of approvals process, whether that is the resource request workflow available in Tempus, where these allocations would have been sent off to the resource manager to approve them, or maybe an internal process outside of Tempus. And at this point, we're ready to assign real people to this project. So I can do that in a couple of different ways throughout Tempus. One is going to be just a simple resource replace functionality to move this demand onto real named people, or I could do the same thing, but really just kind of using a resource request workflow instead. So I'll go through and replace the resources with real named people, but those real people, their allocations still have to go through an approvals process through their resource manager. So you do have options there, but for now, I'm just going to show a quick resource replace. So I know that this has been approved and I want to move these allocations onto a named person. I know that the back-end developer needs to be based in London and they need to have the Python skill. So I'm going to select the ellipses next to the allocation and click on Resource Replace. And here I've got some options, and I'm going to use some filtering to filter down this full list of resources who could take on this work to be a little more specific with the needs I know I need to fulfill here. So I am going to filter by location attribute that I have set up in my environment. I'm going to say that belongs to London. And I'm going to filter by the Python skill. I want it to at least be someone that has demonstrated proficient in that skill or expert. All right. And here I've got some options. So I'm going to take a look down here and see who might be the best person to take on this work. And it looks like Marie Morales has a good amount of time. So I'm going to move her up to this top grid and redistribute the backend developer hours onto Marie. So I just clicked redistribute and I'm going to replace here. Now I'm in the single project allocation grid. We can see that that generic role is no longer here, but Marie has been moved on to the project instead. And that heat map has now been applied since she is a named resource. And I do want to have an understanding of, does this work? How does that affect her capacity and the other allocations she has going on within Tempus? You could do the same thing for the other generic roles that you have here, go through the resource replace process, or go through the process with that resource request workflow enabled as well. You also could take an additional step here if you wanted to bring this new project into the what if scenario planning tool to do some modeling with it. You can plan for a project with these generic resources, but you still need to understand when a new piece of work enters the entire ecosystem of projects, you want to ensure that you have enough space in your portfolio to accommodate that project. So if you wanted to take a look at that process, we do have some helpful videos out on the Help Center or within the use case area of the Help Center. But this is essentially wraps up this use case on demand planning with generic resources. So if you need additional information, I would recommend reaching out to your Tempus representative or checking out our Help Center for more videos just like this one. Thanks so much and have a great day.